Hi, excuse me. I'm Jennifer Roig-Francolí, the mind-body violinist. I enjoy helping violinists and musicians of all kinds play better by overcoming pain and performance anxiety, as well as just plain old negative thinking that gets in the way of your success. So this is my second Facebook Live, and I'm still feeling a little nervous. My first one last week was about performance anxiety. But today, my topic is inspired by a couple of people who wrote back to me and had suggestions for, well, not suggestions, but requests about things they'd like me to talk about in these weekly live videos. So a big thank you to Anne and Manju and others who've asked me the same question before as well. But today's topic is going to be about, hi Anne, Anne just showed up. Hello, I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to talk about what you want to hear, Anne. So today's topic is how to play freely and find your own unique sound. It's a huge topic. Violinists, musicians of all kinds want to know, how can I improve my tone, my self-expression, the tone quality that I make? Oh, Anne, okay, it was a suggestion, not a request. Okay, I think it was a request from Manju. So I hope Manju will be able to see this too. And hello, Kay, welcome, welcome. Nice to have friends here. So yes, talking about sound and self-expression is our topic for today. Hello, Jenny, welcome. But before I get into that, which I will very shortly, I want to make sure that people who are new to my page know that I'm an Alexander technique teacher as well as a professional violinist. And so my specialty is in helping violinists, musicians with a mind-body perspective. So I invite you all to join my group if you're not a member of it. There's so much happening in my group. People are really supporting each other and helping each other and learning about mind-body connection and music making from the heart. So there's a little blue button at the top of my page, and I'll put the link to my group in the comments below when I'm finished today. But I welcome you to join my group, and I have a special article that I put together for you. I just put the link in the description to this video. So I hope when you're done watching, you'll go over and get your free checklist and guide, which has a lot to do with what I'm going to talk about today. It's called The 7 Keys to Make Your Music Sing. So go ahead and get that. And as a preview, I thought I would just tell you the 7 things that are on the checklist. There's much more in there though, because I talk about each of the 7 things at length. So you'll see me flesh it all out. But the 7 things on the checklist are, these are the things to make your music sing, okay? Basic self-care. We forget that we are athletes and we need to take care of this body, mind, self. That has to come first. I talk about this self being the primary instrument. I'll talk more about that today when I talk about our topic. Then the second thing is you've got to have passion and purpose in your life. Otherwise, where is your music going to sing from? And what are you going to sing through your violin? Then we all have doubt monsters. So you've got to conquer the doubt monsters. And that's one of my favorite things to help you with. So we talk about doubt monsters a lot in my group. And hello, Jill. I know we've talked about the doubt monsters. Actually, everybody here who's watching so far is familiar with the doubt monsters. Give me a thumbs up if you know what I'm talking about and you have the doubt monsters attack you at times. I know I do. So yeah, put a little yes in the comments or thumbs up and show me, or a heart if you love the doubt monsters because they help you get to know yourself better and play better. So yes, lots of thumbs up coming. Yes, the doubt monsters, I love them. Then we talk a lot about flow. That's number 4. So you need to understand about artistic flow and what is it? You've probably heard about athletes, how they talk about flow when they're shooting basket after basket, and they're not thinking about how they do it, like which muscles they're using to get the ball into basket. They're not thinking about that any more than we should be thinking about what our fingers and hands are doing. Okay, when you are first learning an instrument, and I have a lot of beginners in my group, I welcome people of all skill levels. When you're first learning, you of course want to have a general idea where your fingers go and how to hold the bow, but there's no right way. So it's not so much about consciously understanding where body parts go. In fact, it's not about that almost at all. It's really more about understanding how to have a clear intention, a musical idea, and then get out of the way so that it can flow through you and out your body, through your body and out your instrument. So flow, oh, that's the big number 4 that I'm going to talk about in that checklist. So make sure you get your guide that goes along with the checklist, okay? Number 5, train your brain. You need to have smart practice techniques. I was talking with Mio about this, and he said, just tell them to stop practicing dumb. And I couldn't do that. I just couldn't do it. But I think we all can relate to dumb practicing. So I ended up writing train your brain, but really I mean stop practicing dumb. So learning efficiency and effective practice skills is really important, and I'm very big on mental practicing. So there's so much you can do mentally, even away from your instrument, that is going to help your ideas flow without extra tension getting in the way in your body. So flow, and then train your brain with the practice techniques and skills. Mental practice is great for flow. Number 6, I like this one, get a guru and find a tribe. Guru, just in the sense that we all need a teacher, right? No matter how great you are, no matter at what level of, whatever your skill level is as a violinist, we all need a teacher, whether it's a violin teacher or an Alexander teacher or a spiritual guru. I don't want to exclude that. No, what I mean is we need models, we need role models, heroes, people to look up to, people who are going to listen and really get to know you in a way that can pinpoint exactly what is going to help you the most. Everybody's different, but at the same time, we're all human beings. And so as an Alexander technique teacher, one of the things I've loved most about teaching the technique is how I've discovered that all humans are fundamentally the same. Our brains are hooked up and wired to the body the same in every person, barring injury or disease. And so learning how the mind and body coordinate is really important, and makes it easy when you realize that we're all in the same boat and we're all using the same kind of human body mechanism. So so you want to have a teacher or teachers that you admire, and you want to find a teacher that has the qualities you aspire to in yourself as a musician and as a person too. I think that's really important. I don't advise getting nasty teachers. There are a lot of them out there, and they will make you work hard and you will progress as a violinist, but you will probably not be very happy and enjoy what you do. So I think having fun is very, very important, and serious work too. And then my number 7 is, it basically helps you get started to free up your music now, because there is no time like the present. I'm going to talk more about that, but that's kind of the big thing that, Mio Morales, he invented this thing called the cycle. Most of you out there who are regulars know about this, but the cycle is, you could call it a centering practice. That's Alexander technique, and it helps you find ease and releasing in your body. And I use this before I practice every time. I do this several times a day. I teach this to all of my students, and in my group, we are going to be practicing the cycle 3 times a week together. I'm going to show up live 3 times a week at least. I haven't started yet, but I am inaugurating it today. I'm telling you about it today, that I am going to be doing much more of that in our musical practice community. So if you're not in the group, come join us, because I'm going to teach you how to find that ease and release tension before you play your instrument, and it's amazing how much that helps. If you know about the cycle and you're doing it, yes, give me a thumbs up right now so that new people can see how incredibly useful and wonderful the cycle is. Mio Morales is an Alexander Technique teacher, a very dear friend of mine. We do a lot of our work together. And so I've learned that from him, but I teach it to all of my students, and I'm teaching it to you in my group. I'm getting a ton of thumbs up. I love this, wonderful. Man, I didn't say hello, welcome. Man, I'm glad you're here too. Okay, so that is your number 7, starting to find ease, learning how to relax in the true sense of relaxing your body, which is not this kind of collapsing. It's about releasing all that extra negative thinking and excess tension in your body that gets in the way of freedom of movement, and especially freedom of self-expression from your heart through your instrument to the world. So those are my 7 keys to make your music sing, and get your checklist if you didn't get it yet, because there's a lot more in there that expands on these 7 ideas, okay? Of course, this only scratches the tip of the iceberg anyway. There's so much more. So, okay, on to my main topic of the day, which Anne suggested. And Manju also wanted to hear about tone quality and interpretation. So it's a giant topic. I know I'm not going to do it nearly justice today in one session, but I'm sure I'll be talking about it many more times in the future. So the most important things I wanted to talk about today, or maybe the most important thing, is that your sound is you. Your sound reflects you, who you are in the moment, and that's changing all the time. I mean, literally it's changing. If you think about it scientifically, you have cells in your body that are dying constantly and cells that are being born constantly. So from one moment to the next, you're literally a different person. That's maybe, an extreme way to look at it, but where does your sound come from? Okay, so this is a question for everybody watching. I would love if you are, able to type into the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on where your sound comes from. So take a moment and just type in an answer. There's no right answer, and there are a million different answers, and I'll give you my main thinking about it. But it would be great to see what you all think about that. Like, where does your sound come from? So the way I think about it is that it comes from all of you, and that means whatever you believe is part of you. And so I always, and Jill puts the heart, you look where my hand already is before I saw that. And so sound comes from my imagination, and it might be a diluted version of that. Yeah, it's hard to express an idea that we have perfectly. I think it's impossible, actually, because we're perfectly imperfect human beings. So there's always going to be some kind of a distortion between our ideals and what we manifest. But yes, the heart definitely is a big part of where our sound comes from. I include in myself the heart, the mind, the body, the soul and emotions and spirit. But this is something that each person, I think, needs to really discover for themselves. What is it basically the question to ask yourself is, who am I? And this is a universal question. It's a question that can be answered, and answered maybe many times, infinite times over a lifetime, and there are, again, no right answers. But I think it's even more important just to ask the question, who am I? It's a very potentially deep philosophical and spiritual question that spiritual teachers have asked for millennia. But it's essential to being an artist, I believe. So to really be able to transmit the depth of our hearts and our imagination and our ideals, that has to pass through everything that we are. And one of the reasons people love music so much is because it's such a direct communication between one person's being and another person's being through sound. And it even goes beyond words. So words can never convey a complete idea. Sound can't either, but I think sound goes just a little bit deeper. It's a little previous to ideas that can be expressed in words. So music is pretty special. So then I also want to add that I think of our main role, so we have a conscious thinking mind, right? And that functions mainly in the prefrontal cortex up here, in the forehead region of the brain. This is the control center of our brain. It's I should qualify that. That's the conscious control center of the brain. Of course, the control center of our whole self is the whole brain, but our consciousness and our thinking selves comes mainly from the prefrontal cortex up here. So we need to learn how to use that part of the brain in the most optimal way. So I think of this part of the brain as having three primary uses when you're making music. The first one is you want to have a clear intention, okay? And this is, it's a clear idea, but it's also a big idea, and you can explore whatever you think that means for you. It can mean very specific things like, I want that note to be more in tune next time, and it needs to be a little sharper, right? That can be a very specific, clear intention. Or, whoa, my bow was so crooked, I want it to be straighter next time. That's also a very specific intention. Or you may see a phrase written with a hairpin so that it starts pianissimo, goes up to fortissimo, and then goes back to pianissimo at the end. Maybe you completely missed that the first time you read through it, and then you go back and like, whoa, I'd like to play the dynamics more the way the composer intended them to be. So, there's a lot of light shining here. The sunlight is very strong all of a sudden. So yeah, you can have a very clear, specific intention. So clarity of intention is one role. Or I was going to say, you can have a very general intention that is not specific, but it's clear. Okay, so it can be a huge intention like, I want to enjoy life. That's a clear intention, but it's also very general. But that could be my intention when I play a phrase, right? So it can be general or specific, but it's important to have a clear intention, I believe. So that's the first function of this thinking conscious mind, the way I see it. And then the second function is to think constructively, like to use your brain, use your mind in a way that's going to help you. Actually, it's funny, you're going to use your mind to get your mind out of the way. Right? That's what we're doing with Alexander Technique. We are learning how to stop thinking the thoughts that get in the way and sabotage our enjoyment and our success and cause pain and suffering. We want to learn, first of all, to kind of know more and more what those thoughts are that are unhelpful, but then we need to have tools that help us to stop thinking those negative thoughts and stop creating the pain. That's where Alexander Technique comes in. That's where the cycle comes in and other etudes that we do, Alexander Technique, homework, these directions. If you're a more traditional Alexander Technique teacher, you know that Alexander, for much of his life, used the words, let the neck be free, to let the head go forward and up, to let the back lengthen and widen. I don't use those directions myself for reasons I talked about in my last video, although, they work great for many people. I prefer not to use those. I have other things that I think work better for me, especially. But having specific directions or conscious constructive thoughts to help us get out of the way is essential. So for instance, what I've been teaching my people in my group, and I'm going to see if I can do something about this light. I'll be right back because I can hardly see, and it's probably hard for you to see too. I'll close my curtain, but I'll go right back. Well, that's better. Okay. I don't know where that came from. Sky. Okay, so anyway, these directions, constructive thoughts, are essential to help us stop thinking the negative thoughts that cause tightness and then end up making it harder to express our ideas. So that's the second role of the conscious thinking mind, is to think conscious thoughts that help us to get that mind out of the way. So we need to learn how to think well, basically, and think positively in very specific ways. So if you want to learn more about how to think constructively, then definitely you need to be in my group. And I'm going to be starting some new online courses very soon that teach you very specifically how to do these things and to start practicing the Alexander technique for yourself. So stay tuned for that. If you get my checklist, you will be on my mailing list, and I'll be able to let you know about future courses and classes as well. And you'll also get my monthly newsletter, by the way. So, okay, we've covered two roles of the conscious thinking mind. So the second one is to think to get out of the way. And then the third one is to trust. All right. And then, of course, that's a big question too. Let me ask you, like, when you're playing your music, what do you want to put your trust in? Let's hear it in the comments. Let me see. Where do you want to put your trust? And there again is no right answer. There's not just one answer. Anne says, in computer science, we call that separation of concerns. Okay, yeah. She's talking, I believe, you said, to each their own, conscious mind, unconscious mind, body. Yeah, to separate things. Right, we need to be able to look at things separately. I agree. And then in the end, we really need to, even more importantly, I think, is to be able to unify all those things so that we can simplify and realize that we're really just dealing with one thing, one mind, one person, one self. So even though we have the words mind, body, soul, spirit, they're really not separate. We think of them as one thing. So trust, yes, trust is a big one. And if you've got any kind of performance anxiety, I suggest you learn ways to trust yourself. And that's, again, something that I talk about a lot, and it will keep coming up. So, all right, so now we've talked about those three roles of the conscious thinking mind. Now, how does that relate to our sound, Jennifer? The topic of the day. Okay, so here's how. First of all, you need to recognize that the mind, again, is connected to the body. It's not separate. And any musical idea has the idea of a sound in it. So you have an ideal sound, but I recommend that you not make your ideal sound too specific, because that's limiting. And the way I see it, the heart, the human being, the self is limitless. And that's one of the magical things about music, is that we can be expressing, we by definition are expressing different things in every moment. So spontaneity and creativity have to come from an idea, an ideal that is infinite and not too specific. So yes, you can say, I want a better tone, or I want a better sound, I want to like it more. That's fine. And let's just leave it at that and not get too specific. I know it's very tempting to start manipulating the hand and the fingers and the contact of the bow on the string, and say, well, I want to change the contact on my string because I want it to be more rich, or I want the tone quality to have a certain color. People get very elaborate about thinking about colors. And hi, Jenny, I just saw you. I think Jenny, and I think it was you you were very much into colors. And Anne, I think the two of you were into sound colors. That was really fascinating when you were doing that. Very interesting. But I prefer to just to allow the sound to do itself. And that means that my job is to get out of the way more and more and more and more and more and more. Okay? Kay says, I need to feel safe in order to trust. Yes, absolutely. Nobody will die. Yes. God forbid that we would die on stage. It's happened before, but I think very rarely. And I don't think it's happened that people have been killed on stage by an audience member. But that's kind of gruesome. I don't want to go there. So the sound, back to this sound, I prefer to keep it a mystery. I don't want to get too specific about the sound that I want to create. What I want is for the sound to be created through me. I'm just seeing Jill says total openness. Perfect. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Total meaning as much as possible, as much as humanly possible, and we are imperfect. So I think that, oh, and Anne is asking, colors should not be part of clear intention. There's no should. That's a great question. And again, I'm interested in what's possible, and anything's possible. So if I want to think of my sound as having a red color, that's fun. Sure, I'll play with that. But at the same time, I find it limiting, and this is, again, just my personal way of thinking about this, but this is really where I'm going more and more these days, is I don't know how a phrase is supposed to sound. I don't know what color it's supposed to have. I don't even think there is a right color, or, I mean, this is obvious. I'm sure you all would agree with me that there is no right color or right way to shape a phrase. But I want to go a step further and really live the reality that I don't know. And that something, and I mean my thinking conscious mind doesn't know. My thinking conscious mind, the way I see it, is meddling. If I say I want my sound to be like this, for me, I want the sound to be so free that it can do anything it needs to do in the moment that I'm playing it. And that means that I need to find in myself such openness and responsiveness that if I play one note one way, with one sound or tone quality, that it's going to surprise me, and it's going to surprise everyone. And then the next note that I play, if I'm responsive, then that next note is going to be influenced by the previous note. And so I cannot predict the quality of my next note. I don't want to predict it, because that to me is almost like putting it in a box. That's not to say that we can't have exquisite music made this way. And most people do make music this way by having a very specific idea about phrasing and tone color and all these things, and how to hold the bow. This is a very traditional way of teaching and learning a musical instrument, but I don't think it really accesses musical greatness, honestly. And I'm the last one to say that I can do this all the time. I know that, honestly and humbly, I believe that I can do this. From time to time, I believe that that sound that has a life of its own does show up through my playing, and it's very special when that happens. My journey right now is to discover, how can I allow the sound to find itself through me as much as possible, with the least possible amount of interference of my ego and thinking mind getting in the way. It's a tall order, and this is not obviously something that we can do all the time, or maybe we could be happy if one or two notes in a piece shows up like that, completely infinite. And it's very hard to put these things into words, honestly. It's something that comes from so much of me. Yes, and Anne says, I'm not convinced. I believe you, Anne. She says, how about pre-hearing? That's something conscious, isn't it? Okay, so now we're getting into the ideas of consciousness and unconsciousness. And this right now, I know is going to sound like a cop-out, but I don't know. And I need to be comfortable saying I don't know. I think nobody knows, really. There are scientists, there's something called the mind, what is it? I just lost the mind project, body-mind project, I forgot what it's called, but there are neuroscientists working on the idea of consciousness and what that is in the body and the mind, and there are no scientists that know. I don't think there are people that know, but I'm just going on what I'm experiencing personally in a subjective way and trying to communicate to you in the clearest way that I possibly can using words. But this is something that I experience. And the way I experience it is by having a clear intention and then thinking constructively so that my ego and thinking mind can get out of the way and the music can do itself through me. And whether the music is conscious or unconscious, I don't really care. That to me doesn't matter. I believe it is conscious, but it's consciousness that goes through me, and you don't have to believe me or take my word for it at all. I'm just sharing something of my own personal experience and something that I know works magic in my violin playing. So I want to be able to share it with all of you in the best way that I can. But we can explore it and discover it together. The Alexander technique tools that I've been practicing since 2003, I have absolutely no doubt that they are bringing me to what I really, really, really want in music, which is to be able to express the depth of that consciousness and beauty and love of life through my music. And I know that I can do that at times. I can't do it all the time yet. And maybe, well, probably never all the time, but I aspire to be able to do that more and more and more. So that probably doesn't satisfy you, Anne, and I'm sorry. I can't satisfy you right now. It's the best I can do. Nan says, I'm learning to trust my finger muscles knowledge and to listen and intonate to the other playing in the orchestra, trusting that they play right. That's great. So I don't want to give the wrong impression that specific things are not important. They are. I mean, you're not going to be able to get a good sound if you play like this, right? And so, of course, from the beginning, you learn it's better to have curved fingers. And that's like a no-brainer. I mean, you can play the violin better standing up than hunched over and crunched in a chair. That's a no-brainer too. But I'm talking more about sound, which is our topic today, and the quality of the sound. And this is something elusive. And it's something impossible to put into words, really. So, but the process is something that is possible to spell out clearly. And that again is those three things: to have a clear intention. And yes, as I said, by all means, play with colors, experiment, explore all the different possibilities. But then in the moment when you're making the music, you've got to let go of all of that. And that's hard. That takes practice. It takes practice to let go of the things you're attached to. Ultimately, that's what this all comes down to. We practice and practice and practice and practice. And we've got to let go and let go and let go and let go. And that's what causes the music to flow. So yes, Nan talking about the fingers and the muscles, knowing where they go. That's all important, right? I'm not trying to say that's not important. But the sound is something unique. Each person has a different sound because your sound comes from your whole self. Each person is unique. That's why the same person, or you can have two different players playing on the same violin, and it's going to sound completely different, right? So you've got to know that you are your primary instrument and take care of that. Then learn the means whereby you have the idea and express it through yourself and out the violin. And yes, pre-hearing, that's important. But even that, we can't become attached to. Well, let me clarify. There are different ways to think of pre-hearing. So if I'm, walking around, I'm taking a walk down the street. Let's say I'm taking a walk And I am imagining the opening phrase of the Tchaikovsky concerto. And I'm shaping it and playing it in my mind and doing my mental practicing, which is very important. Say I'm doing that. Well, I'm still going to have a different idea of that phrase every time I sing it in my head. And then when I'm actually playing it, it's again different. So I'm pre-hearing, and that just means that the music is happening up here, and then it gets expressed through my body and out my violin. And by the time it's out the violin, it's gone, and I'm hearing something else up here. So it's actually not, it's not exactly accurate to say pre-hearing. It's only pre-hearing in the sense that it's first here and it's second out in the world, in the sound. But this is the hearing, this is the creation that thinks, it's going on in my mind. So let me see. Jenny says, I think this is way beyond technique. It is tempting to think I must wait until I can do XYZ before I can rest in complete oneness of sound. I just cycle around and around with these thoughts. However, I do have glimpses of relative freedom which take me by surprise. That's the thing, it's always a surprise, right? So yes, today's topic is really kind of philosophical. It's ambiguous. It's hard to put into words because we're talking about sound. Talking about these things makes me want to do a really, really practical video next time. I'm trying to make this as simple and practical as possible. But here, let me give you all, actually, you know what I'm going to do to make this really practical in a something that you can practice. After I finish this particular video, I'm going to go over into our group, the musical practice community. I'm going to get out my violin and I'm going to practice what I preach. And I will do it live so you can watch me think through it for myself. Okay? Give me a thumbs up if you want me to do that. That's giving myself a big challenge, but I'm up to it. And actually, I'm excited about the idea of doing that in a more practical way. So yeah, thanks, Anne. I see your thumbs up there. And I missed who else it was, but yeah, and Jenny quit. Great. So I think I'll do that when I'm done with this. But before I go over there, I want to know if you have any questions about this idea of sound. Kay says, control issues need balance. Oh, thank you for all the hearts. And then I saw Nan's popped up. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I will definitely go over there and practice for you then. Kay says, control issues need balance. They absolutely do. We should talk about control issues at some point as well. I want to address what Jenny is saying. And do type in right now in the comments if you have any questions, and I'll talk to them before I finish. Jenny says, I think this is way beyond technique. Let me speak to that. It's beyond technique if you think that technique is specific things to do with parts of your body. I have a different idea of what technique is on the violin. I don't like to think of technique, actually, because thinking of technique means it's not musical. It's almost like separating the mind and the body. Here we are separating technique and musicality. And this is an issue or a topic that's come up in my groups before that I never really had a chance to talk about. So maybe I'll touch on that a little more right now. I think that there's a big danger to practicing technique in isolation from the heart and the sound and the musical intention. Someone asked, define musicality. Okay, I'm defining musicality for me right now as I think through it. Musicality is that sense of music that gets expressed through your violin. That's it. That's so simple. Musicality is just your sense of music. It's your sense of rhythm and phrasing and lyricism and melody and all those things coming together with your emotions and but also with the precision of the body. That's where I don't think we should be leaving the body out of musicality. That's just like, that's stupid. You can't play octaves without your fingers. So obviously we're not going to leave the body out of technique, but we can't leave it out of musicality either, because you can't even think of a musical phrase in your imagination without your brain, and your brain is your body. So we've got to stop splitting technique and musicality and make them one thing. So, okay, well, how do I practice playing a scale in tune, you might ask, without paying attention to where my fingers go, especially if you're a beginner or intermediate? You may still not be able to play in tune. Don't I have to practice the scale focusing on intonation? Yes, absolutely you do. However, don't isolate that and take out the phrasing and the rhythm and the shaping and the melody. A scale is a melody, so play it like a melody. And also it needs to be expressive and have shape, and it's got to have soul, or else you're getting really good at playing music without soul. You're getting good at playing the violin without soul and without expression, because that's what you're doing. You're practicing that, and what you practice, you get better at. Okay? So I hope that kind of helps clarify a little bit where I'm coming from. I'm seeing someone else has a comment here. Anne says, it is a pity you cannot be two persons playing your violin. I'm glad I'm not two persons playing my violin myself. Anne says, you know, I like scientific experiments. Absolutely. So let's make some up. We'll do that today. Let's see how I can do that. Nan says, when I let my fingers and body play more freely because I trust in them, I feel my music sounds better. And I bet you 100% for sure you're right. But you know, do that scientific experiment and video yourself, record yourself before and after. Right. So I think the things that I'm trying to say seem like they're all over the place, but I want to simplify it and just come back to sharing that it's really just one thing. Really, truly. You are one person. You're unique. And whatever you're doing with your mind and body and soul and spirit in one moment is going to influence the note you're playing. And I think, how could anybody dispute that? I think it's just obvious. You are creating your sound, so the state of your mind and body self is going to influence the state of your sound that you produce. So all I'm saying is that we need to become more and more and more conscious of what we're thinking, the state of our mind. We need to be aware of what we're thinking and how we're thinking, and how that is relating to our bodies and how we're using our bodies. So you can't separate how you think from how you feel and from what your body is doing. So, okay, thank you. That helps me feel better, because sometimes I think that my ideas are just all over the place and maybe hard to understand. But I'm really glad you're saying, I hear what you're saying very clearly. Thanks. Yeah, if this makes sense to those of you who are out there, please give me a thumbs up so I know that we're on the same page. Sometimes I really do feel like I'm going off somewhere. And I want to make things practical for all of you so that you can do this. And you really can, and it does not matter what your skill level is. You are a human being. Thank you for all the hearts and thumbs up. That makes me feel better about my being able to express this. So again, it doesn't matter what level you're at. Okay, that's why I work with brand new beginners and super elite professionals at the same time, because we're really talking about how the human being functions. How do we take an idea, in this case a musical idea, express it through the body and out the violin? So that's why, by the way, I am calling what I'm doing mind, body, violin. Mind, body, out the violin. That's what it's all about. Okay, so let me just stop and think if there's anything else I wanted to say about sound. Oh, Anne is saying it's probably less of anybody's sound in a static sense, but fluid. So my sound is always changing. Yes, it is not like a fingerprint. No, not the way I see it. No, not at all like a fingerprint. Fingerprint is unique and it never changes. No, your sound is living and fluid, yes, and changing. It's living and breathing, and that's how it touches people. Okay, I mean, sure, you could touch people with a fingerprint, but it's not very, you know, if you did this to somebody and stamped your fingerprint on somebody, it wouldn't really move them. They'd be like, oh, that's your fingerprint. Interesting. But your sound, oh, I'm so glad you asked that. No, your sound is living. It's alive. It's your heart. It's your soul. It's your emotions. That's always changing, right? You feel different now probably from how you did an hour ago. So your sound right now is going to be different from an hour ago. Okay, that said, yes, my body is generally the same every day, and you can recognize my face from day to day and my fingerprints. And I have a unique body that is Jennifer's, and a unique way of thinking that is Jennifer's, and a unique way of feeling things that is Jennifer's. And so all those things make my sound recognizable, as opposed to Heifetz's sound, which is recognizable, or Grimmio or someone else. So famous violinists that you've heard many times, you can turn on a recording, and if you've listened to them many times, you will recognize who the violinist is, for sure, because they do have their own unique sound that's recognizable to them. That's true, but that doesn't change the quality. So Heifetz could still sound like Heifetz on a really bad day where he's messing up and playing badly on purpose. That would still sound like Heifetz, as opposed to at his best when he's, you know, great. It still sounds like Heifetz. No matter what he does, it's going to sound like Heifetz. I'm going to sound like me no matter what I do. But yes, I'm changing always. I'm learning more about myself. I'm accessing new parts of myself every time I play. And it's always a surprise. It's not predictable. And I want it to be that way, because then my audience gets surprised. And even though the music is within a structure and a framework that's predictable, let's say it's an ABA form, or it's Mozart, which is very predictable, and maybe it's a piece we've heard 1,000 times so we know the next note, it's still different and unique every single time. And the sound I'm expressing is different every single time, depending on my mood, just how I am experiencing myself in the moment. So yeah, there's a lot. That's why I said at the beginning, this is such a huge topic. It's giant, but also very simple at the same time. I like Kay says, sound can be like a caress or a shock. Absolutely. The sound is you. The sound expresses who you are in the moment and how you're experiencing yourself right now from moment to moment. Yes, always changing, thank God, or we'd be bored to death. Right? Speaking of famous violinists, I'm wearing this scarf today because it's something really special. And before I finish, I'm just going to tell you this story. I wish I knew more details, but if you've heard, give me a thumbs up if you've heard of Erika Morini. Okay? Or Erika Morini was a child prodigy, an Austrian violinist a Jewish Austrian violinist who was born in 1904, died in 1995. She's one of the few really famous all-time female violinists. And this is her scarf. Can you believe it? I went to Pittsburgh to visit my family over the weekend. It was Thanksgiving in the United States on Thursday, and so it's like our biggest holiday where we get together with family. So I drove to Pittsburgh with my 2 boys and stayed with my parents and my 2 aunts. And my mother asked me if I knew who Erika Morini was. And I said, of course, she's a very famous violinist. Yes, wonderful. And so my mom says, well, I've acquired something. So she said, do you want this? This was Erika Morini's scarf that belonged to my grandmother, my Swiss grandmother. I wish I knew how my Swiss grandmother got Erika Morini's scarf. I don't know the story, but my grandmother did love going to concerts, and her big hero was Anne-Sophie Mutter. And so she was a great lover of my violin playing, and that's how I ended up being a student of Nathan Milstein for 5 summers at his master classes in Switzerland, because my grandmother lived in Zurich. And so I would just stay with her and go study with Milstein during the day and go home at night. But my grandmother loved to go to concerts and loved great violinists, and somehow maybe she befriended Erica Marini or something. I have no idea. But I think it's pretty amazing that I now have Erica Marini's scarf. So I'm going to take it off because I'm going to practice, and I think it's going to get in the way, and I'll show it to you. But I think it's quite nice. It's really not something that I would wear if it weren't Erica Marini's scarf, but I do think it's very beautiful. So here, this is Erica Marini's scarf. There you go. What do you think of that? So I think maybe I'm going to keep it in my violin case because it's really special, and maybe it's going to give some of Erica Marini's sound to me. Although I have to say, I kind of like my sound. I think that's really important. You've got to like your sound. In fact, you've got to love your sound because it's you. So you got to love yourself, and then you're going to love your sound, and there you go. That's practical, and you can do that, right? All right, so thank you all for being here. I'm going to finish up now, but I'm going to do what I said I would do. I'm going to turn off the video, and a reminder to new people watching this later, I really hope that you will join my group, and then you can see me practice now and later you can watch the replay, of course, in my group. I'm going to practice all the things that I talked about now, and I don't know what's going to happen because I never do, but I'm going to do my utmost to get out of the way and let things flow and see what happens to my sound today. Okay? So thanks so much, everybody, for being here and for staying with me and listening to these ideas, which maybe are a little out in outer space, but they're very practical for me. So hopefully I'm able to make them practical for you too. Okay, so enjoy the rest of your day or evening, and I'll see you over in the other group if you come join me. And if not, I'll see you somewhere later. Okay? Goodbye, everyone.